Francis Warrington Dawson is today a name that lives in utter obscurity, and if his name comes up at all, it is in relation with his friendship with Joseph Conrad. According to Dawson's letters to Arnold T. Schwab, he was the first lecturer on Conrad in the U.S. in the 1910 to 1911 range, and was called the first Conrad fan. In these letters he also claimed to be friends with Theodore Roosevelt, on whom he later wrote a book. In a further letter to Schwab, Dawson himself urged Schwab to try to obtain a copy of the Green Moustache, saying he would be thankful for any second-hand copy Schwab could get for him, since the publishers apparently failed before they could issue it, and consequently the book was a rarity even in the 1950s. The project focusing on Dawson and Conrad's correspondence, which Schwab was offered by Dawson to work on, fell through, and a different author eventually wrote a book on the subject titled Joseph Conrad and Warrington Dawson, The Record of a Friendship in the 1960s. The Green Moustache, A Fantasy of Modernism, our subject today, is a book that I first learned about nearly 10 years ago, but which to me was impossible to obtain for the simple reason that each copy cost around $50 at that time, including shipping. I spent nearly a decade waiting for the thing to drop in price, but eventually, on the most recent of Christmases, I decided I was just going to bite the bullet and buy it at the cheapest of the expensive prices available, and ending up paying $35 for the thing, including shipping, because USPS is not a very good international shipping option. Either way, this novel was originally written under the title of Grand Elixir in the 1910s, but was only submitted by Dawson Publication in 1924. As said, it is an extremely scarce novel, as are most of Dawson's books, at least the really interesting seeming ones, so much so I've never been able to find even a photo of the original dust jacket. Of the few biographical details available on Dawson, the only one significant for today's topic seems to be his having lived at Versailles for many years, which probably informed the setting of the novel, which is Paris. Most, if not all, the first half of the novel takes place in the salons and opera houses of Paris, centering on the constant catfights between the Countess de Lorenzay and the Baroness de Merac, in an attempt to usurp the position of the grande dame of the Parisian social circle. Amid this, we find the American pianist Collingwood, whose name no one ever bothered to remember, and everyone calls him under a charmingly French bastardization. The chiefly interesting character among the cast is the Russian Prince Kirill Sarov, who, like everyone in the Countess's social circle, is obsessed with perfumes. However, perfumes are indeed probably the most discussed singular topic in the entire novel. But Sarov is far from simply chasing a fad. He's obsessed with perfumes, specifically with his own special blend, made from ingredients acquired all over the Middle East, mixed at several different chemists, and completed only with the aid of a single loyal servant. This perfume gives Sarov a nearly hypnotic aura, which overwhelms all around him and which further accentuates his domineering personality. The perfume applied to the moustache also slowly changes colours to green, hence the title of the book. The main concern in the first part of the book, beyond talking about perfumes and modernist music, is Sarov's accusation of the Countess had given the perfume he had shared with her to another man, so he could use it on his moustache. This leads him firstly to try and murder a man in a duel, and then to pull strings to have the Countess's husband offered a diplomatic position in Russia, so he can bring her and her friends to his reputedly haunted Russian castle, and, under the sound of the baying of hounds, and with the inexplicable opening and closing of doors and windows in the middle of the night, force a confession from the Countess, so he can know which one of her two associates, her husband or her favourite pianist Collingwood, he is to try and kill, all while also arranging Collingwood a string of concerts in Russia through his sister, just to have him in hand when he wants to have him, and to be able to potentially kill him when the time arises. I told you he's obsessed with perfumes, didn't I? The second half of the book, though shorter, takes place at the castle of Saravinia, and has debates on the metaphysical and physical, culminating in a failed exorcism and the destruction of the castle in a violent explosion. The Countess, after reacting in genuine horror and shock to the image of Prince Kirill shaving off his moustache dramatically in a previous chapter, finally learns not to want to cheat on her husband. The Count remains in the dark about just how many people were trying to have an affair with his wife, and Collingwood fails to learn if the visions of the violent murder of Kirill's aunt, which he and several people at the castle had witnessed independently during the past several days, were real or were the result of gas leakage like he claimed they were all along. The book, despite the gothic elements, if they can truly be said to be any, being underutilized, and most of it taking place in Paris, is still entertaining, though one wishes that the perfume-crazed, murderous Russian prince with the hypnotic eyes would show up more in the novel than he does. Dawson is a rather hard figure to evaluate as a writer, at least a writer of the weird or supernatural. He wrote several books with apparently a strong supernatural content, The True Dimension being, according to L.W. Curry, an occult novel of parallel worlds in the fourth dimension, which being a text I can actually read in the future given the fact that it is in the public domain. However, his The Guardian Demons, which seems to be even more interesting given the description by Curry, is going that it's an occult thriller of demonic assault and possession, is another one of those that is very unlikely I will ever read, even more so than The Green Moustache, seeing that the only copy available online at present goes for $200. Liking Warrington Dawson is certainly not a cheap hobby.